Welcome back, everybody, to day 2 of the Seattle Indies Expo. I'm Meg. This is Alchemist. I'm pointing the wrong way. That's Alchemist. That's the wall. And I'm super excited to be back again with some more amazing indie developers. Now it's time to check out Forest Grove, which is one I'm very excited about because I love me a good mystery. And that's what we're going to get into right now. We're joined by Matt and Larry. Thank you so much for being here. Can you tell us about your game and what it is? What can we expect from it?
Sure. Forest Grove.
Yeah.
It's do you want to take it, Matt?
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So it's a futuristic detective game where you solve the case of a missing teenager, and it takes place in this old Victorian home, and you sort of work through puzzles and piece together clues to figure out what happened.
I am very intrigued. Ooh, I can't wait. But let's take a look at a trailer real quick before we get in depth with you so we can see what the game looks like.
All right, let's run through this. A teenager named Zoe is missing. Her mother said she put her to bed after picking her up from the hospital. Zoe's mom then leaves the house. She comes home later that evening and goes to bed. She wakes up and realizes Zoe is gone, and this is where she last was. Well, this should be pretty straightforward. Teens run away and come back all the time. It could be just a matter of time. But we have to do our due diligence. Let's take a look. A stain. And this looks like blood, but is it even related? And Zoe has a boyfriend. Could he know something? And I know there's a housekeeper. One way or another, Zoe.
Looks so good. I am a huge fan of true crime. I find it really intriguing, and seeing this game, I am just super interested in it. I think it looks great. I have so many questions for you, so let's just jump right in as we check out some gameplay here. I noticed that on the website it said no hand holding, and I liked that. I'm curious what the experience is like when you're investigating and looking for clues in this game to help find Zoe. Are clues very difficult to find? What's that process kind of like?
Has now been missing for over 24 hours. She was last seen by her stepmother and guardian, Mary.
Larry?
Do you want to take? Oh, sure. Yeah. So yeah, go for it.
I could jump in. Sure. Actually, that's a pretty good question because we had to find like a pretty nice balance between making the game enjoyable, because if the clues and puzzles were way too hard, or you're spending hours and hours looking for some needle in a haystack, it's no fun. But it can't be super easy, so we wanted to take kind of hands-off approach, but give you all the tools there in sort of a sci-fi way, and to help you lead yourself through the mystery. So yeah, finding that balance was a bit of a challenge and a lot of playtesting, but so the clues are out there and you've got the tools to find them.
Welcome to the Nanodeck office. Before entering the Nanodeck,
I am digging this futuristic setting for this, especially with the juxtaposition of this futuristic setting and the old Victorian house. But there's one question I have to ask, and it's mostly just a confirmation. Larry, is that your silky smooth voice in the trailer that we heard?
It is. Yes, I'm guilty.
So kind of pivoting off of that, how much of this, like when it came to doing the voice acting for this, how difficult was it to kind of make sure that you didn't give anything away in just how some of the lines are read? I know that there are some things that you say that, depending on where you inflect on a word, can completely change the meaning and focus of what the player is getting. So was that a difficult thing to kind of direct your voice actors in?
Yeah, I think Matt wrote most of the dialogue in the game, so it was sort of written in a way to kind of hint at some things and to reveal some things and leave things out intentionally, so you can kind of piece things together. But yeah, I think he did a really good job as far as directing the voice actors, as far as what needs to be expressed, more than other dialogue.
Yeah, we lucked out with our cast. I think
Yeah.
everybody did a pretty great job, and they were really willing to, like, go back and do a couple pickups if it was, too leading, or a big red herring that was going to make things a little bit too difficult. So I think the cast did a fantastic job.
Absolutely, yeah.
So Alchemist touched on the setting a bit, and like, I'm curious to know more. I need to hear all about this setting. Where are we in this game?
Well, the setting is in Forest Grove. So there is a real town in Oregon called Forest Grove, and it takes place in the future. I believe it's 2075, if I'm not mistaken. But so there is a facility there, and the point of the facility is to prevent crime scene contamination. That's part of it. So in the future, solving crimes, one of the big issues that detectives and the police run into now is contamination of a crime scene. And so the idea was sort of a way to solve that. And this is a very sci-fi approach of where on the actual scene, there are drones that scan the environment, send that data back to what we call the nanodeck, and it sort of projects this environment up to a nano level, and you're then able to go into this scene and without contaminating anything, and sort of find evidence and information and things.
I'm amazed. That is such a cool concept. I love that. And, obviously we're talking a little bit about investigating in this game. I'm kind of curious about, how the evidence in the game is forensic space. How does, real life true crime impact game development here?
Yeah, that there was an opportunity there with the crime scene. We did a lot of reading and research on, like, well, how did they actually go about doing this? And everybody knows CSI, so maybe starting from that point of view. But it's like, go take a look at FBI training documents, and how are things at a crime scene like cataloged? And we had to make things a little simpler, but we have DNA, and we have corrupted DNA and fingerprint oils and proteins and things like that you can you discover, and you can analyze and create relationships between suspects and evidence. And some of that evidence very important. Some could be red herrings, but you start, you have to use your actual brain to make these connections into this web. So kind of feel like, I think they call it the murder wall, where you see the suspects' photographs taped to the wall with like red strings, like, I found this fork here, or, this is the pocket knife, it's got a fingerprint on it, and all that kind of stuff. So presenting all that and walking you through all the evidence with the forensics and all the little chemicals and DNA stuff gets you walking through the web of the crime.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
and there's also the digital side. Sorry, just throwing that out there. Yeah. There's also digital evidence, so photographs, text messages, emails, and things of that nature that you can kind of piece together on a timeline to see where certain things have happened. And
So one question I have is how long did it take to kind of to make this game, and how many people were on the team for this? Because I assume that this is kind of a pretty big undertaking, just with all the research that you've had to do and just learning those different investigating styles and different ways of managing evidence. Like, how big was that team?
Yeah, it's
yeah. It was just us. We worked on our previous game for 5-6 years, and it was a first-person adventure game, also sci-fi. And so about 1.5 years ago, we started working on the sequel to that game and realized that the scope was just too much, especially for us two, and we wanted to kind of finish something in a reasonable amount of time. So we pivoted onto this idea, which we had kind of talked about, years ago, and realized that if we could, we could build off of our existing code base and, tweak some things, and that sort of propelled us to work on this game. And I think it's been about a year, or a little over a year, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Just over a year.
So earlier you were talking a little bit about, the voice acting in the game, and that's obviously so important when it comes to a narrative game. You've got to have the voice actors to back up the awesome writing that you're doing. And we have another question from chat from Bradifer, who asks, did you tell your cast their characters' entire stories prior to recording? Or did you not? Did they know the whole story as they were acting, or did they kind of learn later on?
They learned later on, towards the end, when we started kind of in the dark to see, how natural it could be without them knowing, like, you're the baddie, you're the goodie, just to see. But it became important later on for the finishing touches. Some people absolutely had to, yeah. But they all had a very deep backstories that, we wanted to make sure these characters were pretty well-rounded and fleshed out. So everybody got a full dossier on, like, this is who you are. These are some of your motivations, maybe not how you related to the crime.
So I have a question kind of piggybacking off of that. So in the case of the people, since they only knew their part of it, was there anyone that any of your voice actors who kind of started to piece things together and that might have informed some of their acting? And if so, was there any times you had to kind of go like, okay, you kind of think you know what's going on here, but I'm telling you, you need to lean more toward this side because the conclusion you're coming to is not quite it.
Absolutely, yeah. We had a couple people kind of figure things out, and it's like, okay, hold on, don't let anybody else know because you might ruin it. Yes.
That's cool. That's a great question.
Another question from chat is, and this is another thing that I think is really cool, is this game kind of set up so that you can add more cases later, or like additional seasons or DLC?
Yes, we do hope to make more games in this style in the future, absolutely. And hopefully with each one kind of a similar development time and schedule. Since everything is known, the schedule should be a lot tighter and easier to work with, I guess. That's the goal. Fingers crossed.
Never run out of ideas, too.
Yeah.
It's like
yeah.
Larry's got your 4 ideas already kind of kicking around. Where it's like, hey, great to have a murder in a, some island, or it's like, oh, I always wanted to be the winner. Now that we've got this engine, we can explore pretty cool ideas.
Reconstructing conversation. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to give just a moment to let this moment of gameplay play out, because this looks like such a cool concept that I can't say that I've seen in a lot of games like this. Like, you have ones where you kind of pick up the story through different lore bits or background storytelling, but the idea of having those kind of background pieces and being able to visualize them, it feels like it takes it to a completely different level. Every little bit of background information could end up being part of a cutscene later on.
I love too that it's really interesting how using this kind of system that you've implemented in this game, you could very well have characters be a huge part of the story and a huge part of what's happening, and they could be like dead and you just don't know, like, because you're seeing memories of them technically. And I think that's really cool how it ties into the gameplay like that. A question I had for you is about the evidence board, because I know we have one of those in this game. How does that work and what's it like?
Sure. The evidence board. So there's two of them. There's a physical one and a digital one. And the physical one is presented, and it might pop up here at any moment. It's presented in sort of a grid, and there are 36 pieces of evidence in the game. Each one sort of has, we've handpicked what evidence should be on it, and what character or what information that evidence gives. And so the board, it's sort of like a real-time grid where you can hover over items, and it shows you the connections between evidence, either through like DNA or even substances or particulates. It could be dust or like metal fragments, or it could be through the actual person, like a direct, this character touched this pillow and this knife, in a certain part of the house. And you kind of, the goal is actually for there to be a moment, or more than one moment in the game, where you spend time just sort of hovering and thinking about the connections and what it could mean, and sort of play the game in your own mind in that way. Just really think about it.
Yeah, maybe it'll pop up here soon.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see it.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to that too, just because I have other questions that are going to be based off of that. But another question from chat from Fizz is, how hard was it to develop the overall story and gameplay for this game? It seems like there are a lot of kind of different, like disparate parts that are really, really cool mechanics that you probably could carry an entire game on their own. How did you go about, like, how difficult was it to put all of those pieces together into this narrative?
Yeah, that iteration. I think we've gone through 5 versions of this game, to be honest. Like, one is taking mechanics away. Our very first game, you could interact with almost everything in the world. That's where we were starting. But taking away mechanics, that kind of way of you being a detective in the flow, trying to solve the case, which is the whole point. So there's a lot going on, a lot of mechanics, but it's about half of what we started with. That informed a lot of the story. So the story, we iterated on the story all the way through, all the way up until almost just last week. I think we've got it buttoned up. But there's always been small, teeny changes at the last minute to hopefully make everything a little bit better.
So again, segueing kind of off that question, and this one, if you can't answer this one, I completely understand, because I've realized in thinking of it how this question might be a little difficult. Is there, like, with all the different evidence in this game, right? You assume that there comes to a point where you come to a conclusion of, Jack killed Jill over a bottle of, Heaven Hill. Is there a way that could actually, like, that a player can come up with an incorrect kind of conclusion and then, like, go forward with that? Like, is it possible to accuse the wrong person of the crime?
Yes, that's a great question. And absolutely, that was one of the things that we really wanted to focus on, is at the end of the game to provide you a sort of a tool. So in the game, the company that you work for works with the DA's office. So you're able to recommend charges to the DA. So we present to the player, all of the characters. How do you want to charge them? What sort of evidence do you want to tell them to focus on? And so you can get it wrong, and you'll see that sort of play out at the end. And after that, something that we thought would be kind of fun is we grade the player on your investigative skills from the point of the DA. So at that point, the case would have played out, and you've kind of see how people's lives were changed by your decision making. And so you're sort of graded, and it could be something to kind of motivate you to go back in and see, like, what did I miss? Or yeah.
So when you say
pressure
graded,
is on, I love it.
right?
Yeah.
when you say graded, that that feels kind of a very unique way of doing it, because you don't exactly say that you tell them if they're right or wrong, because they could
Right.
have the right person and all of the wrong evidence, or have all of
Yeah.
the right evidence and come to the wrong conclusion. So I feel like grading that is a really, really cool idea, because I guess I would assume that you wouldn't let them know, because one of the questions I was
Yeah.
kind of going to ask is replayability. Like a game like this
Right.
has to have massive replayability. So was the grading system kind of your way to kind of encourage players to go back in and rerun these cases?
Absolutely. Yes, it was definitely a way to kind of get you to think, because at the end, you may, just like you said, you may think that you got it right, and you'll sort of see what happens to each character. And, I don't want to give the story away, but yeah, seeing your grades. So I've done it myself, and, I've gotten like a C plus, and I'm already pretty familiar with the game, and it's kind of
Wow.
like, oh wait, did I miss something? So it's kind of fun, that part.
So something I'm noticing as we're seeing, you go through the different rooms here, is all of the rooms feel very lived in and very just like well put together. I noticed in the other bedroom, the bed was messy. It looked like someone actually used it. It wasn't like a perfect bed. There was art on the walls. And I think that's really cool. It makes a game feel super realistic. So I'd love to hear about, when you kind of were doing the art for this game and when you were creating the environments, what was that like for you, and how did you kind of decide to build everything?
I thought the Larry's inspiration, I think, was having the first case be set in a Victorian home in a science fiction, opportunity there to have a little bit of fun. And so it's like we can, lots of objects, those lived in spaces. It's like you can telephone, but you can also have something like a hovering drone, because you're marrying these two worlds together. So there was a lot of opportunity there. Like any little we felt would look fantastic, help the story. It kind of the setting. So I'm a little here that way. That if we had set something purely in a very hardcore section, spaceship or something like that, it could be a little limiting. But that Victorian house with that old Clue or Knives Out, or the old classic sort of mystery bees was a great opportunity.
Yeah, just to add to that, another cool thing is that Matt had the backstory. He wrote all the backstory to all the characters, which included vacations that characters have taken, in their lives.
Wow.
So you learn about the character that you're searching for, Zoe, that her mom had traveled to Egypt, and so there's a lot of Egyptian artifacts and Egyptian artwork, and so we tried to focus on the characters and what they might actually have in the home.
Oh, really? You want to check in on all my progress, huh? Well,
I kind of only have one real question left, and that is, where can I pick this game up? I'm looking forward to getting my A+ grade on my first playthrough without any assistance. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah. That's awesome. The game is on Steam right now, and it's actually open for playtesting. So we do have an open playtesting thing going on. So, and always looking for feedback, good or bad, anything. Really, I think it really helps us. So it's up there.
So on the note of playtesting, I'd love to hear more about how the community has been able to get involved with your game and how they've kind of influenced things that you've changed about it.
So for the playtesting, it's been very, very interesting. we've gotten a lot of feedback, and as far as the mechanics, like working on the fine tuning the mechanics and what things are difficult, what things are too easy to solve. Like a puzzle just might be too easy. I actually do want to point out there was one playtester who was so in the game and theories, and it was really incredible. It was one of the most helpful things that I've ever come across, and that actually was very, very helpful in sort of getting to where we are now. And a lot of playtesters have just helped us in that regard, as far as just iterating on it and fine-tuning things, I guess.
It was encouraging to have people seem to really care about the case. They really cared about solving the case. They would let us know. That was absolutely invaluable.
I can neither confirm nor deny. I just added this game to my wish list and requested access to it because I'm really. This is a really, really cool part. This is a really, really cool idea. As a person who's some of the things I like in other games are like Resident Evil are the puzzle solving aspects of it. Just the puzzle solving aspects that really let you kind of really pay attention to the things that are going on in the background, and especially with how much the backstories of each of these characters is going to play into it. I really cannot wait to try and figure out who is responsible for Zoe's disappearance. I'm really looking forward to it.
Oh, I appreciate that very much.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, this game looks awesome. I am super, super excited. I definitely will not be getting an A+ when I first try. I already have accepted that fact, but that's okay, because then I can play it again. So there we go. Thank you so much, Matt and Larry, for joining us and showing us some of this awesome game. I'm really excited to play it. I'm sure a lot of people are. Just as another quick, reminder to anybody who might have missed it earlier, where can we check out the game and keep up with you and your projects?
So the game's on Steam. Oh, sorry, Matt, go ahead.
No, yeah, say the same thing. You can find us on Steam for there, and should point you to any other destination.
Great.
Twitter? Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, Twitter's good. Twitter's
Miga
a
Games.
useful place. Go follow them on Twitter, guys. Alchemist, can you let us know about some of those campaigns I've been hearing about?
I can. We have 2 of those campaigns for those of you who like variety in your campaigns. We have the campaign on Steam where you can check out a lot of these games that we're showcasing here on Steam, and we also have a campaign within Tiltify that also kind of helps support Seattle indies and these games. And if you're not sure about either of those and you want to just get more information or just learn more stuff about Seattle indies online, you can go to 6.seattleindies.org. And Meg, can you let